Test, 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 test. God, what the heck is going on here? Test, 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 test. God, what the heck is going on here? Test, 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 test. Test, 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 test. Cool. Okay. Sweet. So see if that fixes it. Let's see if we got some people. Sorry about that, guys. I don't know what was going on with my audio there. It's a little weird. Forgive me. I don't do this live stream stuff very much, but I'm trying to get into it a little bit more. You know, try to give you guys some stuff, especially right after a fight card like we just had. I think it would be really beneficial to stay on top of it with stuff like this. So let's start with the main event. Okay, we had Ilia Topuria and Charles Oliveira. I told one of my buddies on Instagram. I commented. I was like, dude, if Ilia doesn't starch him, well, let me rephrase that. If Charles Oliveira doesn't submit him, he's gonna get starched by Ilia. And you know, I think we don't put enough respect on a lot of these guys that they go from the lower weight classes. You know, we've seen somebody like Max Holloway where they move up in a weight class and they don't look as strong for the weight class like some other people, you know. We've seen with like Max Holloway, yeah, he had that great knockout at UFC 300, but took a lot of shots to get to that point. But Ilia is just a different beast, man. You guys got to start putting respect on his name. I've been loving this guy for a while. You know, I'm a Spaniard too, so I respect the local Spaniards. But he's super freaking beast, dude. I think the next fight up there, definitely, I think Patty would be an interesting one. Patty's so freaking huge, dude. I had the honor of having lunch with him not too long ago. Got to hang out with him for like 3 or 4 hours and just talk about a bunch of different things and life and stuff like that. But damn, is that guy big. Like, I want to say when I seen him, he was close to like, to me, he looked like he was around 200 pounds, which is just crazy to think that this guy's a lightweight. You know, like he dwarfs. I remember I was talking to him. He ran into Ilia at the PI in Vegas, and he's like, he's a fucking sausage of a man. Like he's so small. Like he said the top of his head came down below his chin. So it's just crazy to me that guy fights at 155. You know, I would be interested to see if Ilia has the same kind of power against somebody like that, because his track record has shown that Scousers don't get knocked out, bro. And I hope, I hope that that's the next one. I know there's still a lot of people above him. I want to say he's ranked 8th right now. You guys can tell me if I'm right or wrong on that, but I think he's around number 8. But he's just a phenom, dude. What he did to Michael Chandler was just amazing. You know, I think Michael Chandler, he kind of falls into these rhythms that we see. You know, he loves stepping through, changing stances to get that overhand. And Patty's seen it right away. So yeah, that would definitely be a very interesting one to check out. You know, I'm definitely surprised that this one ended in the first round the way it did, because I mean he freaking laid out Charles so quick. I was expecting, you know, maybe like round 2 or round 3. I wasn't expecting it to end in the first round like that. But you know, shout out to Ilia. Like he's a freaking champ. They showed some of the stuff. Like he's basically following the trajectory of Conor McGregor. Although I hope he doesn't end up like Conor McGregor, because that dude's on a sick one. I don't know what you guys think about what's going on with Conor McGregor, but I get so many videos in my Instagram of just old Conor, and it's just super sad to see the way that things turned out, you know, especially for his family too. Like, I don't know. I don't know if they think about it the way that I do, but I hope he gets back on track. You know, I'm always rooting for people like that, especially in the fight game, dude. Like, I've had the honor of meeting a lot of really cool fighters. You know, I got to talk to Dominic Reyes a bunch. I got to do an interview with him, hanging out with Dan Henderson, Joe Stevenson. They're just like this. I've never met a fighter that I haven't liked. You know, like they're just regular people. Even Patty, you know. The second I met him, like we were just shooting the shit and hanging out. You know, we were with his manager Graham, and they're just the coolest people. You know, even like obviously, you know, my co-host Jeff Creighton, he's on the Ultimate Fighter this season. His episode was just not this last Tuesday, but the one before that. Just the greatest people. You know, I definitely think, if you haven't started some type of martial art, you just do it. If not, you know, we live in a world now where everything is so dependent on screens. You know, you're probably sitting at home right now watching this on your phone, and just getting out and getting that camaraderie, you know, and hanging out with people that are like-minded and stuff. It's one of the only ways that you can really meet people now, where you're just not meeting them at a bar. And especially too, like, you don't know who you're gonna meet there, you know. Next notable fight on this card, probably if this isn't the fight of the night, you know, I'm not watching the press conference right now. I probably should be watching the press conference, but freaking Joshua Van, man, I gotta say, like, there's so many people that I watched on Instagram and even just like friends and stuff that picked on this card. Nobody thought he had a shot, and seeing that fight was easily up there for me with some of the top fights that I've seen. You know, I don't think we put enough respect on a lot of these flyweight guys' names, but God, is the pace that they can keep up just amazing. You know, you never see a pace like that at heavyweight. Like just having that they're so much smaller, and they can throw so much volume that these fights are just crazy. Like, I remember one of the first fights we did on this podcast. I was just saying how they just remind me of like Dragon Ball Z characters, because they're literally just like da, 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 like the way that they move around. And I think Joshua had some problems that he's going to need to fix, like over kind of in between now and most likely when he fights Alexandre Pantoja, because I mean, you starch the freaking, well, not starch, but you beat the top contender, you're going to go places. You know, you really should be next in line, especially there, because Pantoja's, I mean, what is this, his fourth or fifth? It was his fifth title defense already. So I think getting some fresh blood in there would be really good, especially against him. And taking the fight on a 3-week notice, dude. Like, you just came off of a freaking awesome fight 3 weeks ago, and then you come back in and you do that to the number one contender. I got to say, like, Dana doesn't forget these things. If there's one thing that Dana is he takes care of people that show up, put in the work, and try to be better every single day. And I think exactly that for him. You know, I think there's definitely some issues. I didn't love that he fell into the habit of parrying the lead hand with his lead hand, because it's the same way, like, you've seen it with Alex Pereira, you know, when he knocked out Jamal Hill. Jamal just kept, they got into these hand fight games where he would just get him in a rhythm where he'd start tapping the hand, and then you just switch that rhythm a little bit and you come over with that lead hook, and you can catch guys like that because they're expecting you to do the same thing over and over. And Joshua definitely kind of got into that rhythm for a while, and Brandon was having a lot of success coming over to the top with that hand. So I was a little worried a couple times, but man, that dude's got a chin on him, dude. Like, it's crazy that he was able to handle all of that punishment and dish it right back. Definitely fight of the night. I don't think there was a lot of good fights on this card, but I don't think anything comes close to that. Dana, give them their money. Like that one was absolutely crazy. Freaking Pantoja. I gotta say, like, with that fight, it's crazy to watch somebody. For him, he makes everybody fight the fight that he wants to fight. Whether it's trying to take him down or if he wants to strike. There's been some fights that he's had where he's like, no, I'm going to stand and bang with these guys. But if he wants to take you down, he's going to get you there. So that Joshua Van one's going to be very interesting to see, because the fight with him and Alexandre Pantoja is going to be a completely different fight than the fight that he just had right now. So it'll be interesting to see if he's able to handle that, what's going to be going on with his camp to get him up to speed with a grappler like that, to be able to hang with him. Another good one, Beneil Dariush and Money Moicano. This one was a weird one for me because I actually really like Beneil. He's been to a lot of the fight events in the area. I've seen him around a lot at like Up Next. It's a California MMA promotion for like amateurs and pros just starting out. Super nice guy. Like he's freaking awesome. He looks way older than he is with all of his gray hair, but I definitely really like that guy. But man, it's nice to see him get back in the win column, after these last two losses that he had. Just an amazing guy. Couldn't be happier for him. Don't know where Moicano goes now. You're coming off of 2 losses. You lose a quick one to Islam. Now you lose to Beneil. It's kind of tough position for him, honestly. I don't know exactly where he goes from here. He's probably gonna have to fight 2 or 3 more good fights before he gets another crack at it. And even then, with the class that he's in right now, it's gonna be really tough for him to get back to be able to win the title. Yeah, that one's gonna be a really tough one for him. But I gotta say he's got the best clips. I love the way he pushes the podcast, and just like I'll never forget the freaking turtle in a tree shit. I don't know if you guys ever seen that clip that he had. It's freaking hilarious, dude. That guy's super funny. He's super marketable. I think those are the kind of guys that are just gonna be monsters in the sport. That's one of the parts of the game that we're trying to dial in with Jeff and different fighters, is like, just be marketable, just have fun. Like, I think we focus a lot on the fights, but there's a reason why Conor McGregor was the biggest guy in the sport, and it wasn't because he was beating people, because there's a lot of people that have beaten tons of people. Like, a lot of people don't even think about like Jim Miller. Like, you got the most wins in UFC history, but we don't think about people like that, even though they've had such these long careers. It just comes down to, do you have the clips that go viral? And even with somebody with like Patty, like that guy's just doing everything. He's got a team around him. They're doing vlogs constantly. He's got a podcast that he's doing. He goes around to all these different places, talks to all the coolest people. There's so much. I feel like with the fight game, it's so much different, because you see like people get in the NFL, right? And you make stupid money. You really don't have to do a lot of that stuff. If you look at most of like the NFL players, pretty much everything they post is like stuff that is given to them by the NFL. They send them photos, they send them videos, they send them different things where they just have kind of like marketing material, but they don't have to branch out as much as UFC fighters do. Like, yes, you get the money from your fights, but if you're starting out in the UFC, you might get 10-10, next fight 12-12, next fight 14-14, 14,000 to show, 14,000 to win, and then depending on how you do in those 3 fights, if you win 2 of the 3, you might be able to negotiate a better contract where you're getting like 50-50, 100-100, something kind of like that. But depending on how those first 3 go, it's definitely like a gauntlet. Like, I've definitely learned this a lot, like with Jeff, just seeing, his kind of run. He won his first fight on The Ultimate Fighter, and then we're trying to see, okay, now you're going to be in the semifinals. All right, then what happens there? And then if you get into the UFC, all right, you got to really win those first 3. Like, you got to show people who you are and what you're capable of right away. And if you don't do that, you might be back on the regional scene, and you might have to start back from the bottom. And that's the worst. I feel like that's something that happens to most people in the sport. And there's thousands of people. Well, thousands is a big word. There's probably around like 1,500 to 2,000 fighters in the UFC. We don't really think about this, because you got the UFC fight nights. You have the early prelims and the prelims. There's so many people that are getting shuffled through constantly. But we know the guys that we know, we know the top 10 guys. So in each different weight class, if you were to think about all the fighters that how many do you really know? Like by name, their style, about them, 40, 50, maybe, so it's definitely, it's a game of perfection, and you have to be perfect. And you got to be perfect right away in order to stay there and have a good career, Like I feel so bad for a lot of these guys because it's like, where do you go from there, Like if you start off, you get into the UFC, maybe you lose some and you get cut. It's like, where do you go from there? Do you start fighting again somewhere where you're making no money to try to get back up there? It's a tough road, Like we had another guy out of our gym, Trevor Wells. He was on The Ultimate Fighter a couple seasons ago, and man, just coming from there, it's like he has to kind of run the table now, and he's definitely one of those guys that just salt of the earth. I love that guy. Like he takes everything on the chin perfectly, and he's not super prideful to the point where you can't joke with him about certain things, Like he's willing to take the criticism and roll with the punches, and you just kind of hope for people like that they make it out of there, and they're able to get to where that they're capable of getting to. It just didn't work out for them in that moment, It's always a tough road when you got to fight those Dagestani guys. Felt so bad when I seen that freaking clip of him having to fight that guy first. I was like, I don't know what's in the water up there, but we need to put some of that in our water. But yeah, overall good card. I watched some of the prelims on there. That first one was definitely that what was his name? Goosey Hines. It's honestly really fun to just watch these cards and kind of go into it with an open mind, outside of obviously like the top couple, Like we all have our opinions on what's going on in these cards. I thought in that Brandon Royval one, honestly, like I thought the way that Brandon Royval was going, I thought it was going to be pretty light work for him. I seen the fight with Joshua on his last one, but it's when you're fighting the top contender like that, you're the small fish in the big pond at that point. It's a completely different realm. And I was just super, super excited to see him break out like that. I think that's one of the benefits of a lot of these fights is it's, when you get into sports like the NFL, it's always tied to a location. So it's very tribal. But outside of like a couple of the different guys that I just love to death and I want to cheer for, I have a pretty open mind to just see like, okay, let's see how this one goes, and just overall cheer for the person that's capable of making it out of there. Like that is such a crazy story that guy managed to beat the top contender, and now he's sitting ringside as Pantoja wins his fight against Kai Kara France and gets to get in the cage and gets to face off against Alexandre, and he's probably up next, like that's stuff that like dreams are made of, I know he dreamed of that moment, and there's a lot of guys like that are kind of ascending, and you can just cheer for them, especially with like the world of social media now. Wellmaker is another good example of that, just seeing coming from like a blue collar job, and he's fighting in the UFC, and then he's doing welding when he's not fighting, and then you win a couple bonuses, and you're like, okay, maybe I can actually quit my job and focus on this fighting stuff. There's no other sport that's quite like that when you start out, but we're here for their stories and just seeing the way that things can go for these guys. Like it's truly amazing to see. Like, look at freaking Ilya, dude. Like, he's came out of nowhere. Like it's a lot like Alex Pereira. Like, Alex Pereira just got into the UFC and then just speed ran the whole the division that he was in, and then he moves up and then speed runs to the freaking title again. Yeah, it'd be definitely interesting to see what's gonna quite happen with that one. Yeah, we definitely have like some interesting events coming up. Super excited for Dustin Poirier. Honestly, I'm pretty bummed that he has to fight Max Holloway for his last fight. I was really hoping that something happened with Islam and he got that rematch, because we all have to agree he fought Islam the best of anybody Islam's faced so far. Not including his first fight where he got knocked out, but there's really nobody that came quite close to giving him the fight that Dustin gave him. And I'd be really interested to see, if he beats Max Holloway in this next one, what happens after that. Like, if they offer you a chance at the title, do you take that fight? I would probably take that fight. I'd have a hard time saying no. I mean, he kind of seems like he's the kind of guy where when he's on, and when he's off, he's off. Like, I don't think he has any sort of reservations about leaving stuff on the table. But God, I would love to see that guy get another crack at it. I got a picture up here of him. He's definitely one of my favorite fighters for sure. I'd love to meet that guy someday. Maybe have him on the podcast with Jeff. That would be freaking awesome. And then we got freaking Max Holloway. I definitely want to see what's gonna happen in the lightweight division now that Islam's out of there. I kind of wonder, in Islam too, he's a freaking huge guy. Like, even for 155, he can get up to 170 easy, and that'll be an interesting fight too with Jack Della. I'm curious to see how he handles Islam's grappling. I think striking, not that Jack Della is better, but I think it's closer to a wash than a lot of the other guys that Islam's fought outside of Dustin. I think he could definitely give him some problems. I think it would be interesting to see how he handles 170. It was the same thing with Ilya. Like, nobody thought that he was going to have the same power at 155 as 145. I think people kind of downgraded just how good that he was going to be at 155 just because at 145 he was so lethal. But you also got to realize that freaking Ilya is ginormous. Like, when they show him outside of camp, I think he walks around at like 190, which, okay, for some, like, that doesn't sound like it's that crazy, but for 145, and you're probably walking around at 185, 190, like, it's not too different than what Patty's doing, honestly. Like, walking around at 200 and then cutting to 155, or walking around 190, cutting to 155. He's just as big too, and he looked big in there. Like, you see him. It's funny seeing with Charles too, because I feel like Charles just looks so sunken in. Like, he's just like skin and bones every time I see him. But he has the benefit of being really long, like he can catch people in triangles really easy. He's not like some of us short limb people where, it's really hard for me to get a triangle on somebody. I have to really grab my leg. It's not super easy, but for him it's literally just the way that he's built. Like, it makes him super dangerous at that division as far as submissions go. And he's got good hands too. I'm not trying to denigrate like his hands and his strength and everything. But damn, I can't believe people give Ilya so much shit because he was celebrating the fight before he won it, but I think it's you got him and Merab out of Georgia. I don't know if you guys ever seen the clip of them cutting weight. They just feel like they're blessed by God, and they go into every situation in their life where they feel like there's nobody who has a shot against them, and that's got to be one of the ballsiest things that I've seen, coming up against Charles Oliveira, which he's got the most finishes in the division, and you're freaking out at dinner celebrating with your family before the fight even happens. I kind of wonder, what does his wife think of this stuff? She's like, I don't know if we should do this yet. But he's like, nah, it was written, it's just absolutely crazy. I'd be interested to see what your guys' favorite fight on the card is. Without a doubt, Joshua Van. He's got to get fight of the night. Probably performance of the night, too. I'd actually be interested to see if they posted that up yet. I don't know if anybody's heard anything about that yet. Oh, yep, here we go. Bam, fight of the night. Royval versus Van. Easy. Easy money. I'd be curious to see performance of the night, too. Definitely got to give it to Ilya. Just the way that he did that to one of the legends in the sport. And then I feel like you got to give it to Van, too, honestly. Nobody expected that to happen. I feel like especially in that type of scenario where that's the last thing that everybody had on their mind was thinking that Brandon Royval was going to lose that fight, and then he loses the fight. You got to give somebody like that the performance of the night. For sure. Easy. So hopefully that one goes like that. Yeah, that's crazy, man. What a freaking run, dude. That's got to be one of the craziest turnarounds in flyweight history, for sure. Less than 3 weeks out from your last fight. How do you prepare for a guy like Brandon Royval in 3 weeks? It just goes to show how freaking crazy that Joshua Van is. You came out relatively unscathed from your last fight. That takes a lot of belief, to take a fight like that, because we seen it burn a lot of guys. You see Alexander Volkanovski taking that short notice fight against Islam, and then for a lot of people that take those risks, if it burns you, it burns you good. You lose a title after that, and I think that was one of the time I don't really care about a belt. And I think a lot of it comes down to he won it, but he doesn't feel like he deserves to have won it because he didn't beat the guy that took it from him. And I don't think he'll ever get that chance, so I think that's always something that he's going to be thinking about in the back of his mind. It's like, I'm champ, but am I really champ? And I think he is, I don't think you can judge somebody because somebody beats you and then they move out of your weight class. Because let's face it, it's gonna be tough for Volk to do anything at the age that he is now. I don't see him moving up and down again before he retires. Hopefully he gets one more good title defense before he hangs it up, finally. But freaking Winnie, what do you want? Sorry, guys. I don't know why, but she only loves me when I'm in this chair. She refuses to get anywhere near me unless I'm sitting here. And then she's like, "Oh, okay, this guy's actually pretty good." But yeah, what do you guys think? What was your favorite fight of the night? Shout out to freaking Patty, dude. He freaking called it. I'd seen him the other day, and he was like, he was like, oh, I got to go out to International Fight Week because if Ilya wins the title, then he's going to call me out. And I was like, how do you know that? Do you really, like, do you guys talk about this? And he's like, no, I just had a feeling. And look at him freaking in the cage talking to freaking Ilya. That's freaking nuts. I got to say, he called it. He called it. He knew. And it was probably too just because of their press conferences. Like, they were actually pretty funny. I definitely don't understand a lot of the Scouser slang, that he has. He left us some of his merch and stuff, and I'm like, what the fuck does this mean? His one of his T-shirts, he's like calling somebody a lizard, and I was like, what is a lizard? Is that like super rude? Like, is that like calling somebody a bitch or something? But yeah, shout out to freaking Patty. Definitely, the Patty Ilya fight, that's a tough one for me because I'm such a Ilya fan. Like, just his whole run that he's been on, like, it's just been growing for me. Like, I freaking love that guy, but Patty's a different beast, dude. Like, I think we judge him so hard because he gets so putty and he gets so big. But that guy's a freaking workhorse, dude. Like, even when he's that big, like, I always kind of wonder, like, is that a benefit to you to get that big and you're constantly doing these rounds where you're pushing yourself to the limit and you're carrying so much more weight? Like, I wonder if he just feels like a freaking superhero once all that weight's off of him. It was like he was wearing like a 30-pound vest, and then he just takes it off before a fight. Like, it's freaking nuts, dude. Like, it's crazy. It's just crazy how we can manipulate our bodies like that. Like, coming up and down in weight. To me, I feel like it probably wouldn't be that good for you. But, I mean, it works for him. And I hope the best for both of those guys. Definitely don't want to pick a winner for that one because I'm definitely not going to be happy either way because I love Patty and I love Ilya, and it's going to be a sad night for all of us UFC fans out there. But thank you all for tuning in. This is definitely my first live stream I've done by myself, so I'm definitely not the best at it yet. So bear with me. I'm going to try to get on a schedule where I'm going to be doing this after all the different fight nights. Maybe we can start working on this and, building a community where we can kind of all talk about these things and, grow together and learn a little bit more about the sport. Because that's what it's all about, It's just finding camaraderie through struggle and learning how to be better people. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of the fighters have, is they figured out a way to face adversity and deal with loss. And I think that's something that normal people have the chance to avoid on a day-to-day basis because you never really test yourself. And that was one of the reasons why I got so into Muay Thai lately, where I've been trying to go as much as I can, is because it's like, everybody has this especially with fighting too, you have this such unrealistic view of your own capabilities until you're actually put to the test and you're like, like I'm getting freaking starched by 17-year-olds in class. And I'm like, okay. I get back to the drawing board, Yeah, it's a crazy life out there, guys. I hope you stay safe out there. Hope you had a good night. Hope you